ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरे प्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णा प्रेम प्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्णा चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतस् चार्थे सुभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदि कवये मुह्यन्ति यत् सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। स्वस्ति अस्तु विश्वस्य खलः प्रसीदतां ध्यायन्तु भूतानि शिवं मिथो धिया। मनश्च भद्रं भजतादधोक्षजे आवेश्यतां नो मतिरप्यहैतुकी। Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, verse number 25. These are prayers of Sri Brahmaji to Sri Krishna, Nandanandana. And in the previous sloka we read how he said that one can go beyond this material world only if one has knowledge from Guru, who is compared to a son, and then one can understand one's own Swarupa and Paramatma. Otherwise one remains in this material world, which he says as Anrita Sindhu or Anrita Ambudhi, the ocean of false identity. Because we identify with the material body and then everything else functions on the basis of that. Because whatever we do, whatever we think, whatever we understand, it is related to my identity. And if my identity itself is false, then everything is false. Right? If you are adding numbers and you make mistake in the first two numbers to add, then everything else may be right. The total will be wrong. So sometimes thieves, they steal and then they want to divide it, but now they want to divide it very truthfully. So they steal money or they plunder from somewhere, but now they want to follow the principles of dharma when it comes to dividing it. So it is like that. If my identity to begin with is wrong, if I am mistaken that, then whatever I am going to do after that will be also false, it will be wrong, no matter how moralist I am or how this or that. So that's why it is bhakti only which brings one to the right identity. Because in karma marga also you keep on continuing, I am brahmana, I am kshatriya, I am vaishya, I am this, I am that. If you go to the yoga marga or jnana marga, then you think I am Brahman. But it is only here that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Naham vipro na cha vaishya na shudro. So he said that I am none of all these designations. So he says I am just servant of my Guru Gopi Bhartu Padkamli Das Dasananas. So that is the true identity, to be situated that I am Krishna Das, I am servant of Krishna. That is the proper identity. So Das Bhuto Harereva Nanyastu Kadachana. This is what Padma Puran says. Jiva Swarupa Nityar Krishna Das. So unless we come to this realization, this identity, then all other identifications are just false. They are assumed and they are temporary. So they are not real in the sense that they are temporary. So they will change. Even in this life, they will change. So many identities have changed from birth till now. So that's why it says that one remains in this bhavanritam buddhi. So that is what is called prapancha or also samsara. So in this sloka he also continues on this theme. He says, Atma atmana eva atmataya vijanatam teneva jatam nikhalam prapanchitam jnanena bhuyopi chata pratat praliyate rajva maher bhoga bhava bhavo yatha. So atmanam eva atmataya vijanatam. So one who does not understand the Atma as Atma, Atmanam eva atmataya avijanatam. So if we do not understand the self as self, but we understand the body as the self, so then teneva jatam nikhlam prapancha. So that is the root cause of all this material existence. As long as we are going to identify with this, then we will continue to exist here in this material world, because that is the basis of material existence. So teneva jatam nikhilam prapanchitam. This complete prapancha or this material life is born out of this. So means if you want to get out of it, you have to reverse it, you have to get that knowledge which he said in the previous verse. So therefore he says, Jnanena bhuyopi cha tat praliyate. So if one back gets knowledge, then it dissolves, because it is false, it is misconception. And then he gives an example for that. Rajvam, a hair, bhoga, bhava, bhavo, yatha. So he said just like you mistake the rope for snake. Rajvam ahi. Ahi means snake. So Maher Bhoga. Bhoga means the body of the snake. So because of that there is bhava and abhava. Means as long as you are thinking that this rope is a snake, that is like you are in illusion. And when you understand that this is not snake, it is rope, then it is abhava. So bhava and abhava, they are the illusion of rope as snake, and abhava is when you come to the proper knowledge. So jnanena avritam jnanam tena mahyanti jantava. Jnanena tu tadjnanam yesham nashitam atmana. So that who has destroyed the jnana with jnana, then for that everything becomes enlightened. So Sri Vishwanath says, Nanu taranti eva iti te kimiti taranti eva iti brushe. So he says that why did you say in the previous verse, ye te taranti iva bhava anritam buddhim. When he said that Guru Varka Labdha Upanishatsu Chakshusha Te Taranti, that those who have attained proper vision from Guru, they are as if they are crossing over this ocean of false identity. So the question which is raised, that why you did not say that they cross over, why you said they as if they cross, why you did not say taranti eva, they certainly cross over. You said taranti eva instead of eva. So taranti eva means as if they are going to cross. So why you said like as if they are crossing? Why not say they cross? What is the reason for that? So that's the question. So then he is replying for that. He said, Tatha bhavasya cha anritatvam va kutas tatra tesham jnaninam ashraniye vivartavad mate jagadidam anritam eva tat taranam api anritam eva iti atas taranti va iti chata. So he says that this material world is anrita. So those who are having the philosophy of Vivartavad mate jagadidam anritam eva. So they say that this world is mithya. And if the world is mithya, then the crossing over is also mithya. When they come to realize, then it is as if they are crossing, because crossing what? So he says that's why he said taranti eva, not taranti eva. So bhavasya cha anritatvam va kutas tatra tesham taranam. If the material world itself is false, then what is the point in saying that they cross over the material world? So it is only compared to that as if they cross. So tesham jnaninam ashraniye vivartamad mate. He says this vivartamad, this philosophy vivartavada, that this material world is mithya of the jnanis. So there, according to them, it is anrita, and therefore it is said like that. So taranam api anritam eva iti atas taranti eva iti uchyate. So this is further being explained in two slokas, ityaha dvabhyam. Atmanam jivam. So atmanam eva atmataya avijanata. So word atma here is the jiva. Atmataya jnananandamaya atmatvena vijanatam. Because in Brahmavad, Atma is Brahman. So Brahman is Jnana-ananda. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Anandam Brahma Vijaniyat. So they do not know that this Jiva itself is Brahman, those who do not know. So for them is this material world, and those who know it, there is no material world. Only those who are thinking that rope is snake, for them the snake is there, but one who is seeing the rope as rope. So those who are seeing the rope as rope, there is no snake. But those who are seeing the rope as snake, there is no rope. They only see the snake. So similarly, those who are misidentifying, means they do not know that they are Brahman. For them the world is existing. But those who know that everything is Brahman, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman, and there is no Jagat. So it's as if they have crossed it. And actually there is no crossing. So that's what it says. Atmanam Jivam Atmataya Jnananandamaya Atmatvena Avijanatam, who do not know this Atma to be Jnanananda. Kintu Avidya Avaranat, but because they are covered by ignorance, by avidya, Jyatum Ashaknuvatam, they are unable to know this because of ignorance. Naiv Janatam, so therefore they are not knowing their true self. Teneva Jnanena Nikhilam Prapanchitam Sarva Sansaro Abhut. So for them, because of this avidya, this ignorance, this world appears. That is the meaning of vivarta. That this world is only an appearance, like the snake appears in the rope. So bhuya punascha sankhya yoga vairagya tapo bhakti bhir atmano deha vyatiriktatvena yajnanam tena tatsarvam prapanchitam viliyate. And later on, if one follows the philosophy of Sankhya, Yoga, Vairagya, does tapasya and bhakti, then one comes to realize that one is not the body. One is separate from the body. And then with this knowledge, this prapancha becomes dissolved. Just as when you realize rope as rope, snake is gone. So yatha rajvam aher bhogasya sarp sharirasya ajyan jnanabhyam bhava bhavo adhyasapavado. So it says just like the snake and rope. When there is ignorance, one sees the snake. When there is knowledge, one sees the rope. So when you see the snake, then snake looks real. When you see the rope, snake is gone. So snake was never there, but at that time it looked true and one believed it. So in the material world also, out of ignorance we think things to be real. Real means from our philosophy everything is real, but to think that they are object of my enjoyment, I can utilize them for myself. So then you are in the prapancha, then you are in the samsara.
I did not catch. Could you please explain again how Shri Vishwanath here gives this explanation that when one has this viveka, then the entire material world dissolves?
It's said there, jnanena bhuyopi cha tat praliyate.
But this is completely against the Gaudiya Siddhanta.
This is his giving commentary to the sloka. He's talking about the whole context previously was going on for this Brahmavad. Evam vidham tvam sakalatmanapi swatmatmataya vichakshate. He started explaining it. This is his way of explaining it. That's why I said that this is the opinion of Vivartavad. In his commentary he said Vivartavad mate ashrayaniya.
So he's saying that now Brahma speaks from the... He gives now Vivartavada.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it mean that in verse 22 he takes that asat as unreal?
He said temporary. Well, as far as I remember, we studied that.
That's what you explained, that it should be from the Vaishnava point of view, it should be understood like that. But I'm wondering if he's giving this explanation according to Vaitava, then is he arguing in that line, taking that as to mean that?
Because we have to always keep this in mind. I think we forget that because we are Vaishnavas, then we think that Advaitavad does not exist. Right? We tend to think that Advaitavad is just a figment of imagination of Sankaracharya. But actually his basis, we have studied everything he bases from Shastra. And Bhāgavatam itself says Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdate. So Brahmavad is there, Advaitavad is there. It's not that it does not exist. So this is Advaitavad being described here. Only thing is that we don't accept that this is the ultimate understanding. Right? We don't deny Brahman. And if we do not deny it, then there have to be some people who follow it. So then there has to be some mention of that. But we say that Brahman realization cannot happen without bhakti. That's why he said it. And he's saying that Sankhya Yoga Vairagya Tapa Bhakti Bhir. So he included bhakti. That you follow the path, obviously they are following Sankhya Yoga. And Vairagya and Tapa are part of that. And they also have to do bhakti to realize. So then they become situated in Brahman. So where will be Jagat then? If you realize Brahman, where will be Jagat, Malati?
More Jagat.
Where will be? In Canada? And Jagat will be in Canada. Not in Vrindavan. Because when Brahman is there, then there is only Brahman. That's the whole idea. So then it goes. So that's why it says that Aher bhogasya sarv sharirasya ajnyan jnanabhyam bhava bhava adhyasapavadam. So he is actually trying to be very truthful to the text. Means he is not trying to stress the meaning. You can also give this, the word Atma and Atmataya, you can also say as Bhagavan, but he's just being more close to the word meaning, and he explains it like that.
It's not sarcastically how he explains it, he really means it.
Yeah. Because this is how Brahma is also, I mean, if you see the way, that's why I'm saying, one is, you can be very close to what the sloka is by word meaning and the way he's speaking in this context. Next sloka, they look completely Advaita. If you see the primary sense, you can also give other meaning and then change it. So he's not being sarcastic or anything.
Could you please repeat? I also did not catch it. What was his answer that to the question why he says Taranti Iva?
Yeah, because if there is no sansar, then what is that you cross over?
In that sense.
You cross if it is actually there. So according to Advaitavad, their philosophy is that it is there in Upanishad also, not that only they say Atraiva Praviliyate. So when they say that when somebody becomes Brahman realized, then he doesn't go to Vaikuntha and this and that, and he says it's just merges here. Because the samsara is not there. So it's as if you have crossed. As if.
Because the crossing over is also unreal.
Yeah, but you don't cross. Cross what? It's like if you see the snake in the rope, and then one is that, well, you see the rope, then you kill the snake. Right? And you say, well, actually, as if you have killed the snake. Because there was no snake to kill. So that's why he's saying like that. Because the sloka itself is saying that tato cha jnanena, what was this statement? Teneva jatam nikhalam prapanchitam jnanena bhuyopi cha tat praliyate. So he's being very faithful to the words. Praliyate, the word means it dissolves. By what? By jnana. Gyan, what Gyan? When you know the Atma, because he says when you don't know it, then there is prapancha. When you know it, then there is no prapancha. And an example is of snake and rope. So it's more naturally explained by Advaitavad. So as long as one does not know this, then one will not cross over. Then if you want to give more Vaishnava type of explanation, then you say, well, Atma here means Bhagwan, Atmanameva Atmataya Vijanata. When you don't know Bhagwan as Bhagwan, and you think of him as an ordinary person, then you are in the material world. When you realize him Bhagwan, then it's all Vaikuntha, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. That's another way of explanation you can give. So now he comes next sloka. Ajnana sanjau bhavabandha mokshau dau nama nanyau staritajya bhavat ajasra chityatmani kevale pare vicharyamane tarana vivahani. So he says that this bondage to this samsara and liberation from samsara, both are ignorance. Because if there is no real bondage, then there is no real liberation. Bondage is also illusory, and liberation is also illusory. Krishna himself says, Baddha mukta iti vyakya guntamena vastute gunasya maya mulatvat Name bandho, no? Moksha. So he says that this idea that this is bound and this is liberated is only because of the gunas, not in real. Me gunta na vastute. So it is by the gunas, means when we are bound or we are under the influence of Maya, Maya Duratte, then we are bound, and if we are free from them, then we are liberated. But the Jiva, the Atma is neither bound nor liberated. Right? Who is bound? Who is bound? Navaji.
Well, according to this view, no one is bound and no one is liberated, because it's all in mithya, it's all illusion.
No, even in Vaishnava philosophy.
Who is bound?
Whom?
Everyone here is bound.
How? Bound by what?
By having the awareness turned away from Bhagavan.
No, if you want to bind something...
By the ropes of the three gunas.
So now Triguna is spiritual or material?
Triguna is material.
And Atma?
Atma is spiritual.
So these Trigunas are binding the spiritual Atma?
Yes. Yes.
So that means they are touching it?
No, it's not. The Atma is not touched by anything material.
So if it is not touched, how can it be bound? Tell me.
Because of misidentification with the mind-body complex.
But where is the misidentification? Is it in the Atma or is it in the mind-body complex?
In the mind-body complex.
So it's not in the Atma.
Not in the Atma.
So
of course not.
Atma is liberated.
So Atma is liberated.
So then who is bound?
Oh, as long as we think that I am this body,
But
that
who
I am
is
this
thinking?
mind.
Atma is not thinking. Atma is not thinking.
Who is thinking?
Yeah.
The conditioned Jiva is thinking.
Yeah, but how the Jiva is conditioned? How the Atma is conditioned when the gunas don't touch it? And they can never touch it. The gunas have no power to touch the Atma.
So the Atma is not bound.
You say it is bound, then you say it is not bound. Make up your mind. How can Atma be bound?
No, the Atma of course is not bound.
Then who is bound? There is only Atma and there is only Bhagavan. Bhagavan is not bound. Atma is not bound. So who is bound? Maya?
No.
Maya is bound. Body is bound. Or mind is bound.
The mind is bound. The consciousness is bound.
Mind is bound.
Yes.
But mind is material.
Yes.
So what is the point in binding the mind? Mind is bound with what?
With the three gunas.
So then what this has to do with you? You are not
nothing. Yeah, but I don't try. But as long as I haven't realized, it's easy to say that I'm a spirit soul, not this body.
You are talking about now realizing. Realizing what? You are not bound, so what do you mean you don't realize it? You say you are not bound, then you say as long as I don't realize.
As long as I haven't realized myself as a,
so
I haven't realized my...
So that means you are bound.
Yes, as long as I still think that I'm this
just
body.
Now you said you are not bound. You are actually speaking from both sides. You are a very slippery person. Right? You're like mercury.
No, I'm Tatashta Shakti, I'm on the borderline. I can be either in material consciousness or spiritual consciousness, that depends on me.
How can Atma have material consciousness, tell me? How can a consciousness be material?
Consciousness is not material. But,
This
but
guy
there is
changes
material
immediately.
consciousness. I mean material consciousness that I'm bound.
This is amazing. Okay, Bhushan.
Originally, I think this, if I may express that in a different way, one can think of the Atma as a car. And then...
No, just explain to me. Just explain. Atma is not car. So why shall I think of it as a car?
An analogy is that just a car goes along the road. Right? So it is bound to go along the road. Likewise, the Atma is conditioned by the material ahankara. That's why it is only conditioned to go on the road of the three gunas. So when it gains the knowledge that the Bhagavan is there and it's Atma, then it understands it has wings, and now it can fly, it can go anywhere. Now it is like liberated. So before, because it did not have the knowledge, it was forced to go only along these three routes.
So that's my question. Who is in ignorance?
Atma is in ignorance.
Atma is in ignorance. So that means you did not study Paramatma Sandarbha.
It is Saswai Swayam Prakash, but the Prakash, it thinks that the body is itself.
Yeah, when it's thinking, that means it is in ignorance. If you think rope to be snake,
it has abhava bhakti.
If you think
why the Maya can cover it.
Abhava bhakti or this, I don't care. I'm saying, where is the ignorance? Is it in Atma or outside?
Where is the ignorance?
Yeah, is it inside Atma or it's outside Atma?
Ignorance is not a thing, it's an abhav.
So no, I'm saying about ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
So where is ignorance?
Yes. So the adhisthana of ignorance, of which is the abhav, it is an abhav, which is in the bhakti, is in the Atma, and when the bhakti actually enters the Atma, then it becomes liberated. So this abhav, ignorance is abhav, so it's a lack of and adhisthana is the Atma of that abhav.
And what is the ignorance about?
Ignorance is about that it is the servant, it is integrated part of the Paramatma. That is the ignorance about.
So that's material ignorance or spiritual ignorance?
Spiritual ignorance.
I'm saying, where is the material ignorance? That I am this body. That's my whole question.
Material ignorance comes as a result of the spiritual ignorance.
Where it is, I'm not saying as a result, Just listen to my question. Where is it?
The material ignorance in the three guna with ahankara.
So it's not in Atma.
Material, no.
Now you got stuck. Right?
Can I try?
Yeah, you can also try. Why not?
It's only the misidentification with the mind-body complex that is causing the ignorance. So that is making you feel bound, or when that misidentification goes,
so who is?
You are never bound. Atma is never bound. It's always.
Yeah, but you are not listening to my question. First, listen carefully. So who is misidentifying? Atma?
Atma doesn't have any knowledge or this thing. It is only.
So then, how can?
Mind.
If you cannot have any knowledge, how can it misidentify? To misidentify, you have to have knowledge. Because misidentification simply means wrong knowledge.
So actually,
don't say actually, really, all this. Just make the statement. Because this, when you say actually, really, that you are trying to deviate me.
So answer is that aham bhav is getting fused with the mind, aham bhav, and that is the misidentification.
Yeah, but who is getting filled? Atma or something outside Atma?
Something outside Atma. Nothing is inside.
So Atma is pure, free from ignorance.
It is liberated always.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But then my question is not answered. Then who is conditioned?
Is it man, Babaji? Because it is said that man is Manushyanam Karanam Bandha Moksha.
Yeah, so man is outside. If your hands are my hands are here, and then there is something there, and you bind that, do I become bound? So Atma is separate from the man, and now you bind the man. Man means mind, manas. Then do I get bound? No, because I am not the mind and I am not attached to the mind. I am not touched by anything material.
So Atma follows as mind believes. If it is, that is what conditioning.
Atma follows what?
Mind believes. That is what conditioning.
So that means Atma has to have a mind to follow the mind, right? Otherwise, how will it follow? But when you are in deep sleep, are you following the mind? No. You're not following the mind when you're in deep sleep. Because you don't have a mind yourself. You are a mindless fellow. That's why I'm speaking mindless statements. Okay, let's go to the sloka now. So he says, Jnana sanjao bhav bandha mokshao dau nama nanyau sta ritajya bhavat ajasra chityatmani kevale pare vicharya mane tarana vivahani. So he says that bhava bandha mokshao, bhava bandha and bhava moksha means bondage to bhava. Bhava means this samsara, this material creation. So bondage to this and then liberation from it. These both are called ignorance. Jnana sangya. They are both ignorance. Why? Because there is no bondage. That's what Krishna says. Baddha mukta iti vyakhya na vastuta. It's not real. So, dvau nam nanyasta. He said these are just two names. And they are not different. That bondage, this is bondage and this is liberation. Ritagya bhavat. So, they are not some having separate existence from truth, because they don't have like that. So ajasra chityatmani kevale pare vicare mane taranoya. He says that Atma is always conscious. Ajasra chit. Cannot take away consciousness out of Atma. Ajasra chiti atmani kevale pare. It is pure beyond. Vicare mane taranoya. He said just like if you see the sun, are there day and night in sun? No. Do day and night exist in sun? No. So just as there are no day, no night in the sun, like that there is no bondage, no liberation in the Atma. So therefore they are just two names out of ignorance. If you live on the sun, you cannot say now this is day, now this is night. You can say, well, it is day all the time. No. The word day is in relationship with night. If night is not there, day is also not there. So therefore it says nanyaustaha. They don't exist. Dvau nama. They are only two names. And they don't have any separate existence from the reality.
They have no separate existence from reality?
Yeah. If you are on the sun, then can you say that day and night exist there, they exist there? Can you say like that? So they don't have any existence. The only reality is the only thing which exists. That's why it says Ajnana Sangya, Bhavabandha Moksha.
Babaji?
Do
I
they
still have a doubt here.
Do they have a real existence? So therefore they don't exist separate from the reality.
Could you explain what it means to exist separate from the reality?
Means they have an existence, The reality is there and then this also exists.
And then it's not part of reality, but it's separate from reality?
Yeah. Somebody has a question?
Yes, Babaji, I have a doubt. So in the Shastra also these 5 kinds of muktis are described. So the logic would be that if there is a taratmaya between muktis, there must be a difference between mukti and mukta and baddha, because they are very different between different kinds of muktis. If there was no difference, why would there be any difference between muktis? All mukti would be only one mukti.
So I'm reading Shastra or not?
Yes, sir.
The Shastra itself is saying here.
But then there are also 5 muktis, right? So
yeah, that's why he's saying that these are assumed. So you can assume and then make, just like snake is there and then you can have different types of snakes. If the rope is small, the snake is small. If the rope is big, the snake is big. If the rope is fat, the snake is fat. Right? So you can make various types of divisions of snakes. Right? So those are all divisions of ignorance. But in truth, there is nothing like that.
But wouldn't that, the Bhāgavatam itself talks about, for example, Narad Muni attaining a spiritual form, and then there are others who are attaining impersonal liberation in the Bhāgavatam itself. So these are clearly different things. One has 4 hands, other doesn't have any form.
That's what I'm saying. Before he attained the spiritual form, was he bound? That's the question. You are calling that as mukti, fine, I also call that as mukti, I have no problem. But my question is that before he attained that spiritual body, nepatat panch bhautika, right? Prijyamanaitam bhagavatim tanu. So before that, was he bound? So if you say that he was bound, then yes, he attained liberation. That's one way of saying it. And one way of saying it is that he was not bound before, therefore he did not attain liberation also. That's another way of seeing it. Because he was never bound.
Yes, but he also got this veena, he got this body.
Yeah, I'm not denying that. You can get veena without bound or with bound. Who is stopping you from getting a veena? Suppose you are not bound before and then you get this body which you call as mukti and now you get a veena, so what's the problem? You can have your veena. Veena has nothing to do with whether you are bound or not bound. So Krishna says, Ekasyaiva mama ansasya jivasyaiva mahamate bandhosya avidya anadir. Okay? And vidya tathetara. This is because of vidya and avidya. So in avidya you say it is like this when it is vidya, but Vidya, Vidya are separate. So Ateva Bhavasya Anritatvam. Now listen to the commentary. He says that Bhavasya Anritatvam. Anrita, everybody knows Anrita. Na Rita, it is Anrita. Means not true, false. So he says that this Bhava, this material world is Anrita. Okay? Anritattvadeva tattarnasya anritatvam. If the material world is false, then crossing over the material world is also false or not? It's like in the dream. In the dream, you are drowning in the ocean, then somebody brought a boat or a ship and you jumped onto that and you came to the shore. So the drowning and somebody saving you, both are dream. Right? When you are awake, you can tell the story, everybody will listen, you can write a novel. Some people have good imagination, so they can write a big story out of it. Because when you are drowning, so many things happen. You found one broken part of the ship, you jumped onto that, you go going around, you are surviving by catching fish and eating, and you wandered and this happened, that happened. You can make a big thing. Then you saw a ship, some light flashing, and you are shouting, but they did not listen. And you can make big stories from that. But it was all the author's imagination. He can make it look like, and you make a movie and you watch it and it looks all real to you. But it's all a story, imaginary story. So this is all imagination. Right? All imagination. Anrita. Bhavasya Anritatvam. And therefore Anritatvadeva tattarnasya panita. Then you become liberated. So, I became liberated. But one who is watching you from above, he says, well, you're never bound. So out of your foolishness, you're thinking, I'm bound. So spashyati ajnaniti. So now he makes this as clear in this sloka, that this bondage and then crossing over the material world, both are tucham, insignificant. Ajnanena sanjayayostau bhavabandha moksho. He says these appellations, these names that bound and liberated, these names are given out of ignorance of reality. Bhavaha samsara. Bhava means samsara, this material world. Tadrupo bandhasya. And then there is bondage, what we call as samsara. Taudvau nama. These are just two names. Like you say, rabbit's horn. Is there any problem in having a name called rabbit horn? There is no problem, right? It doesn't exist. And you can make story out of it. That rabbit horn is very good for asthma. You can take a rabbit horn and according to Sushrut Samhita, if you have a rabbit horn, then you grind it and then you mix rose water in it and then you apply it on your chest, then it will cure your asthma. So you can say that. So he says these are just two names. Gya bhavo gyatritvam jnanam iti yavat. So now he is explaining this word ritagya bhavat. It's a very peculiar word, I never seen it anywhere else. It's probably here only you will find it. So he says that Gya means Gyatritva or knowership, and which he says is knowledge, Jnanamiti Yavat. And Rita is truth. So Ritascha so Gyasa means true knowledge. ritagya bhavat. So, jna bhavascha tasmad anyo yo sta. So, therefore, he says that this bondage and reality, ritagya bhavat anya, these are separate from true knowledge. Because ritagya bhavat, he says, is true knowledge, true understanding. Means when you have true understanding, then you will see that there is no such thing as bondage and liberation. So tasmad anyau yau stat tau ritagnyam bhave tasmin ajasra chityatmani tatswarupe jaive kevale dehadi sangrahite vicharimani staina nasta. So now he makes very clear that if you take the Atma, the Jiva, which is ajasra chitti, means continuous conscious entity. So in its own swarupa, there is no contact of body, mind, etc. Body, mind, ahankara, none of these things have any contact with the Atma. Okay? So if it has no contact, if there is absolutely no contact of mind, body, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, any of these things, senses, with Atma, then Atma is not having any bondage. Because all the happiness and suffering which you have, that is only in this mind, not in the Atma. Atma is untouched, asango hi ayam purusha. It is free from that. So therefore he says it is sangrahita. It is free from any touch, any contact with it. Vicharya mane sati na sambhavata. So therefore he says that if you think vicharya mane kevale pare ajasra chitatmani, that if you think properly, then this Atma, which is para, which is transcendental, and kevala, which is pure, sangrahita, it does not have any contact with any of these things. So then you see that this bondage, liberation, they both do not exist in it. It's free from that. And then he gives an example to make it more clear, because examples explain things clearly. So drishtantena darshayati. So he clarifies it with an example. Ye ahani linga samvaya nyayena ratri ahani taranayar anyo staha. So he says that day and night, they are separate from the sun. Okay. Tetu taranau tatha vicharye mane yatha na sambhavata. But if you think, then this day and night, they cannot exist in the sun. So which means that if you are located at the sun, then there are no day and night. Which means that if you are actually situated in your own self, then there is no bondage and there is no liberation. And where else can you be situated except in yourself? Can you be situated anywhere else? Like you are sitting there. So now can you sit here while being there? Is it possible? No. So you can only be situated where you are. So Atma is situated in its own self. So therefore, vicharya mane, if you think, if you deliberate, if you don't think, that is all right. Then you can say anything. Right? You can say anything if you don't think. If you don't think properly, thinking is thinking properly. If when you say something, then also you are thinking. So if you don't think properly, you can say anything. But he says that if you think properly, then you understand that there is no bondage or liberation in the soul, in the Atma. It's like there is no night, no day in the sun.
And ignorance? And ignorance?
Well, night is not there, then ignorance is not there. What do you mean ignorance? There is no knowledge, there is no ignorance. free from it. So that is his explanation of the sloka, and we will stop here if there is any more question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if this particular logic would be correct or incorrect. So let's say we accept that that this ignorance and liberation is a name only. But if this was the case, then the moment I really understood this, I would become I would understand I'm liberated.
Mm-hmm.
This knowledge itself would be enough, but that is not the case.
Because that is no, it's just other way around. It means that you have not understood. You are wrongly thinking that you have understood, and now you are trying to prove that this is wrong. And I am saying that the proof is that this is true, and you have not understood.
Even if this is the case, let's say there is a person who understands.
Yeah.
Qualified person, but even then we would have to admit that Gyan alone can give liberation, which is not what we said. We said that person has to worship Bhagwan, and Bhagwan's kripa, he would obtain that liberation. If only this Gyan understanding Gyan itself would give him liberation, then Gyan, Bhakti wouldn't that go against his Siddhanta?
Jnanam labdha param shanti machrena adhigacchati. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says. Having attained Gyan, he gets. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yasham nasitam atmana. What is it? Prakashayati tatparam. Becomes illuminated.
Because I think in the previous verses we discussed that Vishwanath Chakravarti
nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. So much Krishna himself is saying.
That Maya is under the control of Krishna, so one has to surrender to Krishna in order to be free of Maya.
That is all right, how you do it, but after that also you will only get Gyan.
Okay.
What will you get after surrendering? When Maya leaves you, Maya means avidya, then you will have Gyan.
Can you hear me?
Krishna says, Tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. So tato mam tattvato gyatva. Gyatva means knowing, means having knowledge. Vishate tadanantaram. Then you enter in him. Knowledge. After bhakti, knowledge. Brahma bhut prasannatma na shochati nikangsta. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labte param. Bhakti amam abhijanati, knows me. Yavan yaschasmi tattvata, tato gyatva, tato mam tattvato gyatva, vishate tadananta. All knowledge, knowing. But Dauji, just smiling.
Yeah, you're teaching. You're teaching us how to think. That's great.
Yes.
Maharaj.
Yes.
The Anadya Vidya that is quoted by Lord Krishna Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, so would be about this avidya of not knowing that there is no liberation and not bounding also. Or would be an avidya about also the qualities of Lord Krishna. What should be the proper understanding of that?
Just first understand what is being talked here. Then slowly we'll come to your question. This will be revealed here only. But first understand what Brahma is saying here. So first understand that there is no bondage and there is no liberation. This itself is liberating. Right? This itself is liberating. You already feel liberated. There is no bondage. Okay.
Babaji Maharaj, I have one doubt there from the explanation of this book. That from the, it says, if you are on the sun, there is no day, there is no night. But if you are on the earth, then there is day and night. So as per this Prabhupada's explanation, the sun is like Atma and earth is like mind.
Atma is? Yes, Atma is like sun.
Sun is,
Atma is
sun
like
is
sign. Atma is like sun, and everything else is what non-Atma, whatever you call it, earth, this, that. Everything outside sun, whether it is earth or moon or galaxy or whatever.
So he's not taking, he's not specifically saying anything about the mind.
No. Okay.